This is Gemara in Gittin, Daf Mem Aleph, and we're holding on Mem Amid Beis, 6 lines from the bottom as we begin the Gemara. In the previous year, we read the Mishnah, and the Mishnah is really the headline for today's year, which is what? Eved Sha'asai Rabbi Apoitiki. An Eved that the master made him an Apoitiki, in which we explained, utilizing the words of Rashi, and we highlight those words again before we begin the Gemara, that Rashi taught us that that someone tells his creditor, for example, I owe you $100, and I say, if I don't pay you back, this is in front of you, this Eved is in front of you to collect from. And then what do I go and do afterwards? The person goes and then frees the Eved. The Mishnah taught us that the Eved be'etzem is not chayiv anything shuras adin by the letter of the law, but rather when they tikkun ha'olam for the betterment of the world, and we're going to see today what exactly that means. We force the master to free the Eved, and then he himself writes the shtar on his value. So let's begin today. Says the Gemara, quoting the Mishnah, Eved shasai rabu apotiki v'shechraroi. Says the Gemara, mi shechraroi. Who was one that freed him? So Amar Rav, Rabbi Rishon. The original master was the one that freed him. The original master in our scenario is the one that owes money to the other person. So says the Gemara, so how do we explain the Mishnah? Shuras adin by the letter of the law in Eved chayav klum. The Eved is not obligated anything to the person that the master owes money to, the Rabbi Sheni, who is the second master, Kedi Rava, like the din of Rava. Amar Rava, Hektish, Chametz, V'Shichrar, 3 incredible entities, 3 items that are be'etzem, owner list, Mafkiin, Midei, Shibud. The halach of these 3 entities teaches Rava, Hefker, Chametz, and one who's Meshachar, his Eved. What is the halacha? Mafkiin midei shibud. It removes any lien, any obligation at all from these entities. And that is the reason why, by the master freeing the Eved Shuras Adin is his own free person. So now we continue, but rather for the betterment of the world. What's the betterment of the world? That we're afraid that the person I owed money to, again, I owe Ruvain money. I freed my Eved. So by the letter of the law, Ruvain has no claim on my Eved. But what are we worried about? Ruvain might find my Eved in the marketplace, and we turn over to Mem Aleph, Amid Aleph, and our pages are backwards. I apologize. Here it is. Okay. Extra moment. There we go. We turn over to Mem Aleph, Amid Aleph, so we're afraid that the creditor, the person I owed money to, Ruvain in our example, might find the Eved in the market, V'yikra, boy, what's going on over here? This is Gemara in Sight, Daf Mem Aleph. Vayomer loi, and the creditor might tell him, Ruvain might tell this person, apologies. Now you know that this year was recorded on the Daf Sight, Daf Mem Aleph. But here we go. Vayomer loi, and Ruvain, person I owe money to, might meet the Eved in the marketplace. Vayomer lo avdi ato, you're my Eved. So because of that concern, Koifines Rabbi Sheni, we force the second master, Ruvain, Vasa Asai ben Chayrin, and Ruvain is forced to make him free. The Koisev Eved Shtar al Damav, and the Eved has to write a shtar for his own value to Ruvain, to the creditor. Meaning, really, the Eved owes Ruvain nothing. He was freed from his master, so everything should be fine. But because the slave himself might lose out, because this new creditor is going to claim that he's his slave, so what we do is we make the second master write him a shtar shechur. Now the Eved is ostensibly free. So in response, as goodwill towards the second master, he says, I'll give you my value, because he now got a star that he's a free person. Continues the Gemara 3 lines down, and Aleph Rashbag, Oimer Ein Eved Kaisif. Ella Mishacher Kaisif. The Eved doesn't have to write anything. The Mishacher, me, the original debtor, he's the one that has to write, because he's the one that really owes the money. So says the Gemara of Amaika Mifli, what is the machlekes Tanakam and Rashbag? The machlekes is a fundamental machlekes Baba Kamo. B'mazik shibudei shel chaveiro kamifligi. If you damage the shibud, the lien of your friend, you don't damage him directly, but you damage that which he could have collected for. Demar savar chayiv. The Rav Shimon ben Gamliel holds he's chayiv, and that's the reason why the original master has the one that writes the value. Umar Savar, as Tanakama holds, he is pater. It's Marnami, let's prove this din. Hamazik shibudish chavera banan machlekes rashbag vira banan. So l'maisa and machlekes, when we say him, they take an oilam. He should write his value. We have a machlekes. Who is writing that value? According to Tanakama, it's Evan himself, because he gained that he got a star shechar. According to Shimon Gamliel, your mazik shibudei shel chavera, your mazik delin. So the original owner is one that has to write the value. Pshat number 1 in the Mishnah, brought down by the Gemara as a Rav, that the shechar is the Rabbi Rishon. Ula Amar, Pshat number 2, 10 lines down, Mamalef Amalef, first one line is V'Rabbanan, says, Ula Mi Shecharoi, Rabbi Sheni. The second master is the one. Reuven in our example, the one that I owe money to, he is the one that frees David. And now we explain. Shuras Adin by letter of the law, never chayiv klum b'mitzvah. It's a totally new explanation. By the letter of the law, the Eved, he's not obligated at all in the mitzvahs of a free man. Elam, and they take an oilam, shuriyatza love shem ben chayrin. Meaning, really, this Eved isn't free. Really, this Eved is still indebted to the first master. But because people are going to call him Shem ben Chayrin, so therefore we're kaifin it's Rabbi Rishon, me. V'asasei ben Chayrin. The first master has to free him. And then v'kaisev shtar al damav, and the slave himself writes the shtar of his value to whom? To the first master. Because I'm the one losing out, because I didn't have to free him at all. Rashbag Oimer Einai Kaisev Ela Mishacher Kaisev. Says if Shimon Gamliel, I am the one that has to write the value. Excuse me, the Mishacher, the second master, Reuven, the one that caused this whole issue, because he is the one that caused me to lose my slave. So a completely different understanding entirely of our Mishnah brought down by Ula. And based on this, Michael Miflegi, what is this machlekes? 15 lines down, the first word line is behezik. Behezik she'enai nikar kam miflegi. If you damage someone in an unrecognizable way. Mar savar Shem Gamliel holds shemei hezik. And that's why the person that caused this damage is not recognizable, which is the second master, which is Reuven. He has to write the shtar. Says the Gemara, Ula my time alamar karaf. What's lamaisa? The reason that Ula has a completely different explanation. Why doesn't he say like Rav? Amrlacha Sheni Rabbi Karaslay. Says Ula, do we call the second person his master? It doesn't work in the words of the Mishnah. Rav my time alamar Kula Amrlacha Sheni Mishacher Karaslay. So because of the difficulty in the wordage of the Mishnah, that is where this machlekes between Rav and Ula came in. What exactly is the entire story of the Mishnah? Now, before we finish this shtickle Gemara, says the Gemara, Itmar. Ha'oi says, if someone makes his field an apoitiki, this is really a sugya for Baba Kama, but once we mentioned the din of an Eved being an apoitiki, we continue with what is the din. So makes a field an apoitiki, telling the person he owes money to, you should collect from this field, apoitiki la'acherim, to another person. And then, shatfan nahar, and a river washed over this field. Imi Shapir Noah, Amer says Imi Shapir Noah, Rav Yechlan, Einai Goiva, that was his name. Einai Goiva Mishar Nechasim, he has nothing else to collect for. Once you make an apoitiki, that's the only place to collect from. No, you still collect from other fields. As Rashi points out, this means to say, we can sell this field, and they'll collect from the rest. So says the Gemara, because Imi is beautiful, he says things which are not pleasing. What's the reason that he can collect from anything else? The Tirgum Shemaitzas, we have to explain. They say that what does he mean? You have no right to collect for anything aside from this field, meaning the exact opposite, that there's nothing else that he can collect from. What happens if the river washed over? But then you cannot collect from other fields. Finally, Tanya Idach, another Braisa, even after you make an apoitiki, says the Braisa, you still could collect from other properties. But Isha, why? As we learned in Ksubis extensively, that a woman's derech is not normal for her to go around to other batei dinim to make collections, and therefore she only will collect from the apoitiki and nothing else. We continue in the bottom of Memalef and Menalev after a short segue into the halachas of apoitiki. We now get back into avodim. We have an Eved who's 50-50. As Rashi points out, what's the case? Let's say there were two brothers or two partners, and one of them freed his portion. So what is the halacha? Says the Mishnah, says Beis Hillel, one day he works for his master, and the other day he's free, he's to himself. You help the master. The master doesn't lose anything. He gets his Eved for the day he's supposed to. But the Eved himself is messed up. Why? This Eved can't marry a maidservant. Why? Because part of his body is free, and a free person can't marry a shivcha. We turn over to Menalef Beis and continues Beis Shammai as we quote the Mishnah, and Bas Chayrin Yavshir. And this Eved as well is impossible to marry a free person. Why? Because he's partially an Eved. Yibatel. So he shouldn't get married. But the world was only created for having children. Shenemar. As the Pasuk in Bereshis teaches us, Laitayu bara. Actually, it's pasuk in Yeshaya. L'shavis yitzara. Shav did not create the world only for it to be having children, be inhabited. Elam they tikkun oilams, and says Beis Shammai, what do we do with this Eved that can't get married? We force the master, who is the one who still has ownership, to free his half. And the Eved writes to compensate the master, shtar for half his value. V'chazru Beis Hillel. In a startling Mishnah, usually we know that we pass like Beis Hillel, not Beis Shammai. In this Mishnah, we find fascinatingly enough, Beis Hillel was chayzer, and he himself paskin like Beis Shammai. So we begin the Gemara Memalef Amid Beis, says the Gemara Taner Rabbanan. What is the halacha of one frees half his slave? Rabbi Omer Kana. Rabbi says Lamaisa works, and that Eved is now half free. He has half of his freedom. The Chachamim Oimrim, no. Loi Kana, he doesn't acquire anything. So Amar Rabba explains. Machlaik is Bishtar. We're debating in a case where one freed his Eved via a shtar. The Rabbi Savar, they have to learn if they saw, says the Torah regarding a shivcha, and if she was partially redeemed but was not fully redeemed, the she didn't get a shtar. Shtar lekesef, says Rabbi. Kesef ben kula ben chatzia, just like when it comes to kesef, money is effective to free part of a slave or half a slave. Avshtar nami ben kula ben chatziyov. Rabbanan, they disagree and they say Gamri lala mi isha, ma isha chetzi aloi. Just like a woman, you're not able to give her half a divorce. Af Eved Nami Chatzia Loi. So says Rabbi, the machlokes, when one tries to free half his Eved, whether it works or not, the machlokes, Rabbi says it works, the Chum say no, says Rabbi, the machlokes is only bishtar. Avol bekesef, 15 lines down, the first line is Nami. If he freed the Eved with money, Devri Akol, Kana, everyone agrees that the Eved is partially redeemed. Devri Akol Kana, that he acquires that part of his freedom. Peduya ve'enai peduya. Why? Because the pasuk is talking about a shivcha who was redeemed, but not fully redeemed. So we see that there's a possibility to redeem, but not fully redeem via cash. So says the Rebbe, the machlekes is only bishtar, but everyone would agree that you could redeem an eved partially with cash. So says the Gemara, based on that which Rabbi just said, Lema b'hakam ifli. Let's say the machlekes Rebbe and the Chachamim, whether the Eved is kaina or not, is the following machlekes. Timar Sava Rebbe holds Hekesh Adif. The Hekesh is better, and therefore the Hekesh, the equation between money and shtar, teaches us that by shtar as well would work to free him in part. Umar Sava and the Chachamim no. Gzeir Shava Adifa. The Gzeir Shava is better. And that's the reason why the Chachamim hold La La Miisha. The Gzeir Shava teaches us that the Eved is similar to a woman. Just like a woman cannot be divorced in part, so too an Eved cannot be freed in part via Ashtar. So it proposes the Gemara that this machlokes Rebbe and the Chachamim is not an isolated machlokes in a case that one tried to free an Eved via shtar, but rather it's a klali, it's a shas machlokes, whether a gzeir shava or whether a hekesh is better. Says the Gemara, no. Everyone agrees that Gzeir Shava is better, and therefore Lala Meisha should win out. Shiny Hacha, but our case is different, Dikala Mifrach, because we could say that there's a reason that the Eved is not like a woman. A woman can only be, a woman is not divorced with cash. So because of that, that's the reason why Rabbi Nachum have a machlokes, but is not a klali is thinking machlokes whether Gzeir Shava or Hekesh is better. For Rav Yosef Amar, a second attempt at what the machlokes is, machlokes bekesef. So Rav Yosef is arguing on Rabbah, just to make this clear. Rabbah is teaching us machlokes is bishtar. Rav Yosef is coming along and he's saying no, machlokes is even or with kesef. The Rebbe have to learn peduya. Very clearly in the pasuk it works in part. For Rabbanan Savri, no, don't learn out from the pasuk. Why not? Because Dibra Torah Kelashain B'nei Adam. The Torah just talks the way people talk, but in truth, says the Chacham, the same thing would be by cash. Avol bishtar Divrei Akol Loi Kana. Says Rav Yosef, the whole machlokes is by kesef, but bishtar, everyone would agree that it doesn't work. Meisvei asked the Gemara and Rav Yosef, says the price if someone refrees half his ever bishtar, Rabbi Yomer Kana, v'chamayrim loy kana, clearly not like Rav Yosef who just taught us that bishtar Divrei Akol Loi Kana, tiyofta de Rav Yosef, tiyofta. So says the Gemara that this second brisa, what about with money? Nema bishtaru pligi avol bekesef loy pligi. If the second brisa seemingly pointed out that we just quoted that the entire machlokes is bishtar, seemingly not bekesef. So lema tavitiyofta de Rav Yosef betarti. It's a double kash on Rav Yosef. Amlcha Rav Yosef, no. Pligi bishtar vuadin bekesef. That's what the brisa meant. That's the machlokes by both. I've lived in Koyach Esev L'Dia Kod Rabbanan, the classical Gemara. Bryces always like to say, Koyach the Teira is Adiflei. It's greater to teach us the Chiddush via a heter. And with that, we continue Tashema. Let's bring a raya to Rav Yosef. We had a kasha on Rav Yosef. We wanted to suggest that it's a double kasha. The Gemara says no. Now it says the Gemara Tashema. We have a raya to Rav Yosef. The Hefta says the pasuk Yachol. I would think 20 lines to the bottom. First word line is Yachol. The Hefta. Yachol Akol. You would think she's fully redeemed. Tamalim Eloi Niftasa. Eloi Niftasa. Yachol Akol, she's not redeemed at all. Tamalim the Hefta. Hakeitzad. What does that mean? Peduya Veinoi Peduya Bekesef Uveshava Kesef. Vein Lielu Bekesef. Bishtar Minayin says the Bryce Tamalim of Hefta Eloi Niftasa. Chupasa Eloi Nitin La. So the Bryce seemingly speaks it out explicitly. And continues the psukim, the kosav law sefer krisis. Malalon bishtar, avkan bishtar. Ainli ala chatzia bekesef, oikula bishtar. So says the Gemara, okay, now I understand, if part is with kesef or all bishtar, chatzia bishtar minayin tam lamar veftel and if dasa, oichupas lo nita la makishtar, like kesef, makesef ben kula ben chatziav, shtar nami ben kula ben chatziav. So now, here the Gemara finally articulates what the raya is. Bish, Lamal Rav Yosef, Basar Di Toisef. After we had a kash on Rav Yosef, now we can explain this price because Amani Rebbe, because this price is going to be according to Rebbe, Rebbe El Rabba, Reisha Divrei Hakol, V'Sefer Rebbe, according to Rabba, which was the first explanation of here of the Machlaikas, comes out very shver. So we conclude Amlacha Rabba in its true Reisha Divrei Hakol, V'Sefer Rebbe. Rav Ashi Amar, classically Rebbe he El Mastin Tiktani Mishchazi Ever Chatzi Ben Chayrin. Actually, no. Says Rav Ashi, V'Sefer Rebbe. Rav Ashi Amar Rebbe he. The next kasha of the Gemara. Those are the two ways of learning Rabban and Rav Ashi. Now, the Gemara is going to try to now go a little bit deeper, but we're going to leave that El Masnitan for the next year. B'siyata Dishmaya.